Hey, Facebook Live. My name's Cary Fong, and I'm with Tina Steam. I've been a speaker with Tina Steam for a few years now. I'm so excited that you guys are here joining us tonight. We're going to cover a hard topic, but something that I think is really pertinent to what we're going through right now. This just this time, this crazy time that we have, COVID-19, and so we're going to talk about some things to do with anxiety. A little bit about me. I have three kids, 8, 10, and 18. I love being a mom, but one of my other passions in life is being able to encourage and support people and also educate around the topic of mental health. And part of that is because I've battled anxiety and depression most of my life. As a young kid, battling anxiety but not knowing what it was very challenging. And then growing into an adult and still with that battle, but learning how to manage and how to cope with it. So today we're going to talk about what the difference is between just having some anxious feelings and actually having an anxiety disorder. We'll be talking about panic attacks and what panic attacks really look like, tips on how to cope with those, and of course, we'll talk about how to help your child through anxiety and some tips to manage it and to cope with it as well. First off, of course, we want to talk about what the difference is between just having anxious feelings and then versus an anxiety disorder. All of us at some point have anxious feelings, right? Everybody in the world has been anxious in their life at one point or another. And especially right now, we're experiencing some crazy times and unprecedented stuff we've never been through before, stuff we've never heard of before. And that can cause some anxiety. It can cause you to feel unsettled. You may have that little pit in your stomach that just feels nervous or anxious. When we talk to kids about it, we talk about having the butterflies in your stomach, and that can be both positive and negative. And although it's common, it's still a very uncomfortable feeling, for sure. Nobody wants to feel anxious. In most cases, it's something that people feel and then can move on from. In anxiety disorder, or a generalized anxiety disorder, also known as GAD, G-A-D, that encompasses many forms of anxiety. There's so much in regards to mental health that we think we know and we think we have an understanding of, but until you have been through it or you know someone who's been through it, it's really hard to judge it and to understand it. The clinical definition of GAD, or generalized anxiety disorder, according to NAMI, which is the National Alliance of Mental Illnesses, it is a chronic, exaggerated worrying about everyday life. An anxiety disorder causes worrying that can consume hours of each day, sometimes a person's entire day. It can make it hard for somebody to concentrate or finish everyday tasks, things that were once easy to accomplish. The clinical diagnosis of generalized anxiety disorder requires a medical professional. So it's not something that you should try to diagnose yourself. A person with generalized anxiety disorder can become exhausted from worry and experience physical symptoms like headaches, tension, nausea. It's something that can be treated both with therapy or counseling as well as medication. But again, that's something that needs to be diagnosed by a medical professional. It's not something that should be self-diagnosed. A lot of people suffer from anxiety, and with anxiety can also come panic attacks. I've known these panic attacks myself. I've had many of them. Panic attacks are sudden feelings of fear, often feeling paralyzed by fear. There's feelings of sudden terror. And they often come repeatedly and without warning. Panic attacks can often be mistaken for heart attacks, and they can cause incredibly powerful physical symptoms like your heart racing, heart palpitations, chest pain, dizziness, shortness of breath, sweaty palms, sweaty feet, upset stomach like nausea, and racing thoughts. I've experienced these panic attacks many times, and I truly thought that I was dying. The first 3 or 4 times that it happened, I drove myself to the ER or to the urgent care clinic because I didn't know what was happening and thought that I was dying. As I've experienced these over and over, I've learned to realize when they're coming on. I've learned to recognize what's happening, and I've learned a few tips on how to cope with them and how to manage them. I've learned how to help myself calm down in the middle of a panic attack. If I feel a panic attack coming on, and I can usually tell when it's coming just by my mind racing, my thoughts racing, my heart beating faster, my palms getting sweaty, and kind of that dizzy and nauseous feeling coming on. For me, that's how it really manifests. I can grab 2 ice cubes each in one hand, and just the feeling of that coldness in my hand takes the attention away from my brain or from whatever I'm feeling anxious about. It kind of tricks my brain to stop thinking about it. Just turns the switch, and I start thinking about the coldness and the sensation in my hands. The other tip that I love is called progressive muscle relaxation. You can YouTube that, and a ton of different videos will come up for it, and they are excellent. But basically, progressive muscle relaxation is going from head to toe, contracting and then relaxing every muscle group. And so you would, I'm going to look really silly for about 10 seconds, but you contract your entire face. So you scrunch everything up and you hold it for 5 seconds. And then you release it. And you do the same thing with your shoulders. You bring them up to your ears, and then you release it. And you go down and you squeeze your arms and you release them. And that just helps calm your body down. Another tip that I love, and this is a great one for students because you can do this in the classroom and nobody will know that you're doing it. It's a great one to do before you take a test if you have test anxiety. You pick a color, say blue, and you would look around the room and pick out in your head everything that is blue. So that sign is blue, that lunchbox is blue, that chalk is blue. They don't use chalk anymore, but whiteboard marker is blue. So you would find everything, and it's the same thing as the ice cubes. You're playing a trick on your mind, taking the attention away from what you're anxious about and focusing it on something else. If you or your child seem to be overly anxious, and by overly anxious, I mean, even though right now is not like a totally normal time and we're feeling anxious about lots of things, if there's seems to be more, or if you're not even sure if it's anxiety or if it's an anxiety disorder, either way, if you're questioning it, I would definitely recommend that you find a therapist or counselor to talk with and work with, even just over the phone for now. It would benefit you greatly for sure. Tina Steam can assist you in finding any of those resources that you need. Even just on our website you can find stuff. Even if you think that your anxiety may just be purely situational, it can still be good to talk to somebody. And I am not a doctor. I am not an MFT or a therapist. All of this information that I'm giving you is purely based on my experiences with anxiety. But I will tell you that having a therapist and a counselor that you trust, as well as a doctor and psychiatrist if you need meds or if your child needs meds, that is something that makes a world of difference. And it may take a few times. It may not be the first counselor you go to that you automatically click with, but it is worth it. So, first thing is, if you're just curious or wondering what your anxiety is or what level it is, find a counselor or a therapist that you can call and talk to, and just start the conversation going. I will say this, there's absolutely no substitute for a good doctor or a counselor. Some things that you can do along with a good doctor or counselor: getting regular exercise, eating healthy, staying away from things like caffeine. Caffeine is an incredibly huge culprit in exacerbating anxiety. Alcohol is also a big culprit in exacerbating anxiety, although a lot of people use it as something to help calm them. In the long run, it actually can make it worse. And taking care of your body is a big part of managing anxiety. Sleep. Getting enough sleep, but not too much. If you have a child, if you have a teenager, they need about 9 hours of sleep a night. So if your child is struggling with anxiety, see if you can get them to sleep more. I know that's tricky. I have an 18-year-old. I get it. But it is important. And even adults, we need sleep too. So try to do what you can to regulate your sleeping habits. Limiting screen time. This one sounds like it's for the kids, but it's really for us too. I know that when I'm on Facebook or when I'm checking Instagram too much or when I'm watching the news too much, turn the news off. Take a break, especially right now. That screen time, although yes, our kids need limited screen time as well, of course, but so do we as adults. And learn what your triggers are. For me, it's fear of death. And so whatever that trigger is for you, do the work to find out what it is. And a lot of that work is going to be spent with a counselor or maybe doing self-reflective exercises. In my darkest days with anxiety, I truly wondered if I would survive. I didn't know if I would get through that part. I wondered if I would ever be able to live a fulfilling life, or would I constantly be stuck in fear? Would I never leave my bed because I was too afraid to get up and face the day? I was afraid that at every turn there was going to be something that would hurt me or kill me, and then I wouldn't be here for my family. Would that fear just never go away? I also felt with every inch of me that nobody else suffered the way that I was suffering or felt the way that I felt. I thought that I was the only one struggling with this, which made me want to isolate even more because I would not want to talk to anybody about this for fear that they would not love me or judge me or leave me. But here I am. I am living a fulfilled life. I have gotten out of bed, but not because anxiety has suddenly left my body. I'm here because I've learned to live with it. I'm here because I've learned how to manage it. I've learned how to cope when I have those down days. For some people, anxiety lasts for a moment. For some, a season. And for some, it lasts their entire lives. For me, I think that I might be a lifer. But I'm okay with that now. If you had asked me that 3 years ago, I wouldn't have been okay with that. But I am okay with it now. Because I have my anxious days still. I can have panic attacks still. But I found ways to cope with it. And so there is hope. There is the possibility that this will not be with you forever. Or this will not be with your child forever. But the tools that you can have and you can give your kids to manage whatever anxiety they're facing, whether it's situational or an anxiety disorder, those tools will last them a lifetime and will get them through this. So I hope you can use my story as encouragement for your kids or for yourself watching this, and know that anxiety and even anxiety disorders are common and you aren't alone. There are so many people that struggle with this. And so being able to talk about it and share about it with close friends or your family is helpful. Can be a helpful tool for you, but also for them. So Thanks, you guys. Be kind, stay safe.